Hello everybody, it's Tarun. Welcome to your 19th tutorial in the CSS for presentation course. In this tutorial, I'll start with the 6th unit, which is page layout with CSS. Now that you understand the principles of moving elements around on the page using CSS floats and positioning, we can put these tools to use in some standard page layouts. This unit looks at the various approaches to CSS driven web design and provides some simple templates that will get you on your way to building basic 2 and 3 column web pages. So before we get started, it must be said that there are seemingly endless variations on creating multi-column layouts with CSS. This unit is intended to be a starter kit, and the templates presented here in this unit are simplified and may not work for every situation. Although I will try my best to point out the relevant shortcomings of each. Okay, so before starting the unit, I'll just want to tell you that what I'll cover in this unit. I'll cover fixed, liquid and elastic page layouts, 2 and 3 column layouts using floats, a source independent layout using floats, a 3 column layout using absolute positioning, and top to bottom Fox columns. Okay, so let's start with page layout strategies first. Before we start dissecting CSS layouts, let's talk about the various options for structuring a web page. As you know, web pages appear on browsers of all sizes, from tiny phone screens to cinema displays. In addition, users can resize their text, which has an impact on the layout of the page. Over time, several standard page layouts approaches have emerged that address the issues in various ways. Okay, so I'll just tell you some of the layouts now. First one is fixed layout, which stays put at a specific pixel width regardless of the size of the browser window or text size. The second one is fluid, or you can say liquid layout. It resizes proportionally when the browser window resizes. Third one is elastic layouts. It resizes proportionally based on the size of the text. And the fourth and the last one is hybrid layouts. It is the combination of fixed and scalable areas. So now let's examine how each strategy works, as well as the reasons for and against using each of them. So we'll start with first layout, which is the fixed layout. They allow the designer to control the relationship of page elements, alignment and line lengths. Okay, this layout approach became popular due to the fact that folks have traditionally viewed the web primarily on desktop monitors with ample real estate, and the web designers were keen on reproducing designs that look exactly the same on every screen. But as you know, times are changing, and we are no longer we do not make those assumptions any longer. Okay, and we do not strive for pixel perfection now. When you design a page to be specific width, you need to decide a couple of things. First, you need to pick the width, usually based on the common monitor resolution. As of this tutorial, most websites are designed to be 960 pixel wide, or they are about to fit nicely in the most common 1024 by ventures even larger as monitor resolution increases. Either way, it is a design decision. You also need to decide whether the fixed width layout should be positioned in the browser window. By default, it stays on the left edge of the browser with extra space to the right of it. You can also center the page, splitting the extra space over left and right margins, which may make the page look as though it better fills the browser window. Okay, so I'll just show you one figure where you can see two fixed with layout page positioned differently in the browser window. Okay, and one of the main concerns with using fixed layout is that if the user's browser window is not wide as the page, the content on the right edge of the page will be hidden. Although it is possible to scroll horizontally, it may not always be clear that there is more content there in the first place. In addition, although the structure of the page does not change, if a user has text set to a very large size to make it easier to read, There may be very few words on the line and layout may look awkward or break altogether. Okay, so I'll just show you now the code and the figures of two width layout. Okay, two fixed width layout. So let me just show you. So here you can see the two different two fixed width layouts. Okay, the first one here starts from the left side. Okay, and in the second one I have splitted the margins on the left and right sides. Okay, so now let's review the pros and cons of the fixed width strategy. Well, first of all, we'll see the advantages. The layout is predictable and offers better control over line length. It is easier to design and produce. It behaves the way the majority of web pages behave as of this tutorial. Okay, but that may change as users visit the web primarily on devices other than the desktop. Okay, and now let's see the disadvantages. Content on the right edge will be hidden if browser window is smaller than the page. There may be awkward amount of leftover space on the large screens. Line lengths may grow awkwardly short at very large text sizes, and it takes control away from the user. So now I'll tell you how to create fixed width layouts. Fixed width layouts are created by specifying width values in pixel units. Typically, the content of the entire page is put into a div. Okay, that can then be set to a specific pixel width. This div may also be centered in the browser window. Widths of column element and even margins and paddings are also specified in pixels. Okay, so we'll see some examples of this technique later in this unit. So we'll now move forward to the next design, which is fluid page design. In fluid page layouts, which is also called liquid layouts, the page area and column within the page get wider or narrower to fill the available space in the browser window. In other words, they follow the default behavior of the normal flow. There is no attempt to control the width of the content or line breaks. The text is permitted to reflow as required and as is natural to the medium. So I'll just show you one figure, which is the figure of W3C site. Okay, which is a good example of the liquid layout. So here you can see that the liquid layout fills the browser window and content reflows when the browser window and the column resizes. Fluid layouts are a cornerstone of the responsive web design technique. Okay. Now that the web designers are coming to terms with a vast variety of browser windows and screen sizes, particularly those smaller than the traditional desktop monitor, many are moving to designs that are flexed to browser window width, whatever that might be. Okay, because it is futile to try to build a fixed width design for every screen size, I think fluid layouts will see a change. Okay, of course fluid layouts have both advantages and disadvantages, so I'll just show you the advantages and disadvantages of that. Okay, let me just show you only. So these are the advantages and disadvantages. Well, now let's see the advantages. Fluid layouts keep with the spirit and nature of the medium. They avoid potentially awkward empty space because the text fills the window. On desktop browser, users can control the width of the window and content, and no horizontal scroll bars. And now, what are the disadvantages? On large monitors, line length can get very long and uncomfortable to read. They are less predictable. Elements may be too spread out or too cramped at extreme browser dimensions. It may be more difficult to achieve white space. There is more math involved in calculating measurements. Okay. So now let's see how to create fluid layouts. Create a fluid layout by specifying width in percentage values. You may also simply omit the width attribute, in which case the width will be set to the default auto setting and the element will fill the available width of the window or other containing element. So I'll be showing you one figure. In that figure, it is a two-column layout. The width of the each div element has been specified as a percentage of the available page width. The main column will be always be 70% of the width of the window, and the right column fills 25%. Okay, and the remaining 5% is used for the margin between the columns, regardless of the window size. Okay, you have already gotten a taste of this approach when you created a column with float in the earlier in the last unit. Okay, so this is the code which I was talking about just now. Okay, one potential drawback to fluid layouts is overly long line lengths, but you can prevent the layout from becoming ridiculously wide by specifying a maximum width for the page. Okay, you can also use the minimum width to keep the page from getting crazy skinny. That gives you some of the advantages of a fixed layout while still providing flexibility at sizes in between. Okay, so now we'll move forward to the next layout, which is elastic layouts. A third layout approach marries resizable text with predictable line lengths. Elastic layouts expand or contract with the size of the text. If the user makes the text larger, the box that contains it expands proportionally. Likewise, if the user likes his or her text very small, the containing box shrinks to fit. The result is that line lengths, okay, which is in terms of words or characters per line, stay the same regardless of the text size. This is an advantage over liquid layouts where line lengths can get too long, and fixed layouts where very large text may result in awkwardly few characters per line. Okay, so now I'll show you one figure for this example. Okay, this figure shows the elastic lawn design. Okay, for some website, CSS Zen Garden. Okay, it is an old website but good for showing elastic layout at work. Notice that when the text size gets bigger in each sample, so does the content area of the page. However, instead of rewrapping in the larger layout space, the line breaks are the same. Okay. The full page zoom feature offered by the most current browsers has stolen some of the elastic design's thunder, or you can say the surprise of this property. Now all the web pages appear to scale up proportionally, but elastic layouts can still address issues caused by users making changes to their default browser font size. Okay, proponents of elastic designs like that the proportions of the page are tied to the typographic content. In these days of unknown screen dimensions, it makes sense to design with the content element as the core. However, elastic layouts have the same issues as fixed width layout at large sizes. Okay, although you can control that with a max width property, and are generally not as useful as fluid layout in the mobile context. Another drawback is that although the page grid scales with the text, embedded media such as images and movies do not. There are solutions to that as well, but those are beyond the scope of this course. So now let's review the pros and cons of elastic layouts. So let's talk about the pros, which is advantages first. First is that it provides a consistent layout experience while allowing flexibility in text size. The second advantage is that it gives tighter control over the line lengths than liquid and fixed layouts. So there are only two advantages for this, but there are a few more disadvantages. Now let's see the disadvantages. First is images and videos do not lend themselves to automatic rescaling along with the text and the rest of the layout. Okay, the width of the layout might exceed the width of the browser window at larger text sizes. Notice the third one is that it is not as useful for addressing device and browser size variety. And the fourth disadvantage is that it is more complicated to create than fixed width layout. So now let's see how to create elastic layouts. The key to elastic layouts is the EM, okay, which is the unit of measurement that is based on the size of text. For example, for an element with 16 pixel text, an EM is 16 pixels. It is common to specify font size in EMs. In elastic layouts, the dimensions of the containing element are specified in EMs as well. That is how the width can respond to the text size. For example, if the body text size is set to 16 pixels, okay, which is the default on most browsers, the page is set to 40 EM. The resulting page width would be 640 pixels, which is 40 EM into 16 pixel per EM. If the user resizes the text up to 20 pixels, the page grows to 800 pixels. So this was all from my side in this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I'll continue with the layouts and I'll talk about hybrid layouts. Okay. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next tutorial.